Hi there, my name is Imogen Weatherhead and I'm the founder and CEO at Qudini, and I've got some really interesting survey insights that show how UK consumers are behaving within retail stores during the coronavirus pandemic. So we surveyed 2,000 UK consumers at the end of September 2020 to understand how they were interacting with stores and whether they were avoiding stores and which types of stores they were avoiding and to what extent. What concerns did they have within stores, and which technology solutions used by retailers to manage their experiences do they most appreciate out of host-managed waiting experiences, virtual queuing systems, contactless click and collect services, and in-store and virtual appointment offerings. At the time of the survey, we were just at the start of the second wave of the national coronavirus outbreak. The UK government had announced measures to increase public safety, so restaurants would have to wear masks and shop staff would also have to wear masks, and people were only allowed to mix within groups of 6 inside. So at the time that I'm speaking right now, we're actually in much harsher restrictions. UK weather had also just taken a turn for the worst as well, with it starting to get much colder and summer very clearly being over at that time. We broke our survey insights down by gender, household income and age generation, and we also asked consumer opinions across a range of different types of retailers over here on the right. So our main insight showed that consumers, despite being kind of 6 months on from the start of the pandemic and things not being quite as bad as they were during the restrictions that we're in right now, still 64% of customers were avoiding stores as much as possible because of the outbreak. We found that there was no kind of strong correlation between different age groups, and they were all pretty much equally likely to avoid stores, although slightly higher for your millennial customers and very slightly higher for Gen Z customers. We found that higher household income groups were more likely to avoid stores than the lower household income groups. And we found that the main reason customers were avoiding stores was definitely because of health concerns, to avoid contracting and spreading the virus. So that was 69% of people. 41% said that they've been buying more things online, and 31% said that it was financial reasons. They were trying to avoid spending money. And interestingly, 15% said that they were trying to avoid buying things due to environmental consciousness reasons. If we look at it by age group, you can see that baby boomers are slightly more likely to avoid stores for health reasons. Over here, your blue line. Online shopping was kind of equal amongst all demographics, with the exception that millennial customers were slightly more likely to be buying more things online. The Gen Z customers were the most concerned about finances. And interestingly, the younger generations, particularly Gen Z customers, were more likely to avoid stores for environmental consciousness reasons. So they're 3 times more likely than baby boomers and Gen X customers. And this is something retailers do need to be aware of, because this is going to increasingly play on the minds of these younger groups that are increasing in spending power. We then wanted to understand which types of stores are customers avoiding. And we found that food and health associated retail stores were avoided the least. So your kind of grocery stores, pharmacies, pet stores, as well as actually interestingly estate agencies, opticians, health food stores, mum, children and toy stores are very popular and depended on by people. But then you've got stores that are avoided more, where your shopping malls, homeware, furniture, fashion, travel agencies, department stores, electronics stores. We then wanted to ask customers what bothered them about being within stores, what were their biggest concerns. And we found that 54% of customers were concerned about the idea of getting too close to other people. 52% were very concerned about other people not wearing masks. 43%, so slightly less, were concerned about touching products and surfaces that others have touched. 36% were concerned about queuing inside or outside of the stores, and a quarter of people were concerned about having to wear masks themselves, although that's obviously something retailers can't change. But the top 4 ones, if retailers can find ways to improve against these big concerns of customers, we can encourage more customers to come to store and to give them more confidence to come to store. So everything from queuing to getting too close to other people. We next wanted to dig more into these insights of queuing and how customers felt about queuing, what bothered them about queues. So we asked customers before coronavirus, how often would you avoid entering a store or walk out of a store without making a purchase because there was a wait to speak with a staff member or to check out? And we found that 83% of customers had admitted to walking out of a store or avoiding entering a store because of queuing. 10% said that they often would, 38% said that they sometimes would, and 35% said that they rarely would. Whereas only 14% said that they would never walk out or avoid entering a store because of queuing. Interestingly, we found that younger generations were much more likely to walk out of a store or avoid entering a store because of queuing. So you've got your Millennial and Gen Z customers in the red lines here. They're both more likely to often and to sometimes walk out of stores. And then also your higher household income groups are twice more likely than the younger generations to walk out of stores without buying things or avoid entering stores because of queues. So retailers are losing some of their key customer groups, these higher household income groups, and also the younger generations who are increasing in spending power because of queuing. And we then also found out that during the coronavirus, customers were more likely to walk out of store. So 48% said that they were more likely to walk out of store because of queues and waits during the coronavirus outbreak. 28% said they were more likely, and 20% said they were much more likely. And again, sadly, it's these younger generations, and so your Millennial and Gen Z customers here, and your higher household income groups who are more likely to be lost due to wait times during the coronavirus outbreak. So these problems are massively exacerbated by the coronavirus outbreak. We then asked customers, would they be less likely to return to a store because of a long wait experience? And we found that 61% of customers agreed with the sentiment. So 26% strongly agreed with the statement that a long waiting experience would make them less likely to return to a retailer, and 35% said that they somewhat agreed. So sadly, not only are retailers losing immediate revenues thanks to wait times and queuing, but they're also losing long-term loyalty of these customers that are deterred by this. And again, we found similar correlations in that the higher household income groups were the most likely to be lost for good due to wait times to come into stores. And we found that across all age generations, it was kind of relative in terms of the percentage that strongly agreed with the sentiment that they would be less likely to return to a retailer because of queuing and long waiting experiences. So we then wanted to find out from customers what bothered them about queuing within stores. And we found that contracting COVID-19 was definitely the biggest concern amongst 40% of people. After that, it was things like weather conditions, not knowing how long you have to wait, being uncomfortable standing too long for 33% of customers, wasting time. And it was all these kind of factors around not feeling in control and not having information and not feeling comfortable that were most important. And this was more important than things like feeling undervalued by the brand or getting bored, where that was kind of only 6 or 12% of customers concerned by those things. But actually, interestingly, digging into this feeling undervalued by the brand, although it's only 6% of people, when you break it down by age, generation, and household income, it's actually very interesting. So you can see here that only 2% of baby boomers would take a queue personally as a reason to feel undervalued by the brand. But there is a strong correlation between younger age groups and their increased likelihood of taking a queue personally. So 10% of Gen Z customers, which is 5 times that of baby boomers, would feel personally undervalued by the brand because they had to queue. And actually, if you look at it then by household income, you can see that there is a big disparity, and these higher household income groups really would take a queue personally and would be much more likely to feel undervalued by a brand because of queuing. And this could explain why these customer groups are more likely to walk out of a store because of queuing, and they're less likely to return to a store because of queuing, because they're taking it personally as a reason to feel undervalued. We then wanted to ask customers how long they were willing to wait in different types of stores. And we found that 69% of people, so over half, said they were not willing to wait more than 10 minutes. Actually, 21% said they were only willing to wait up to 3 minutes. 19% said 3 to 7 minutes, and 19% said 8 to 10 minutes. So retailers don't have long And if you're a retailer that has a service that takes longer than that and you don't want to over-resource your store, it's important to find different ways to manage customers against this. We found that customer interest in waiting was different across different types of retailers. So these headers should actually be flipped. So you've got customers are prepared to wait longest in your grocery stores, your pharmacy stores, estate agencies, cycle stores, mum, children and toy, opticians, travel agencies, car dealerships, luxury fashion. And you'll see that that's all the essential stores, the health related stores, and also the high value, very high value product stores. Whereas they're less prepared to wait in stores like jewelry, homeware, fashion, sportswear, electronics, DIY, bookstores and shoe stores, where they expect transactions to be quicker and therefore they expect not to have to wait as long. Younger generations and high household income groups, although our earlier insights show that they are less tolerant and they're more likely to walk out and not return to a store because of queuing, they're actually slightly more patient. So overall, their mean wait time threshold before they would walk out was slightly longer than the older generations or the lower household income groups. So retailers actually have a little bit more time to appease these customers. And then in line with the idea of appeasing customers, we wanted to understand what customers thought of different retail choreography tools that we're seeing a number of retailers implement to better manage and choreograph their customer experience alongside their colleague activities to improve their overall experience of a store or even an online shopping experience. So first of all, we asked about virtual queuing systems, the ability to enable customers to join a virtual queue either from their phone or via a host with a tablet, and to receive updates via the host or via SMS and smartphone web link about their queue position, and to receive an update when it's their turn for service. Appointment scheduling software that enables customers to book appointments, whether that's a time to come into a store to browse or to receive service, or even a time to connect from the comfort of their own home virtually by video or even phone. And then the final one being contactless click and collect services that enable customers to check in from their phone from outside of store and receive SMS and smartphone updates that show them how their order is progressing and let them know when the store advisor has found their order and is coming to bring it out to them. So we found that these solutions had a different level of usefulness rating across different age groups. So younger generations were most likely to find contactless click and collect services useful across 16% of customers. Virtual queuing systems were next in line. Thereafter, the idea of booking store appointments, and after that, virtual appointments. Whereas actually for baby boomers, they were most interested in store appointments, followed by virtual queuing systems, followed by contactless click and collects from outside of the store, and then thereafter by virtual appointments. We found that customers rated these different types of services useful across different types of retailers slightly differently. So you've got your quick purchase stores, your grocery stores, your shopping stores, malls, fashions and shoe stores. Customers rated virtual queuing as the highest and most useful product, followed by contactless click and collect services, and then in-store appointments. Whereas your stores with higher priced items, such as car dealerships, travel stores, opticians, estate agencies, banks and building societies, customers were most interested in the idea of booking appointments for in-store services, followed by virtual appointments, and then followed by virtual queuing, and thereafter contactless click and collect, where these services are quite slightly less useful because customers want to connect with someone to speak about the products they buy, like when you're buying a car. We also found that kind of in between that, you've got these kind of mid-level sales process and product items where things like jewelry, lingerie, electronics, department, pet stores, sportswear and cycle stores, customers were most likely to find contactless click and collect services useful, followed by in-store appointments, followed by virtual queuing, and then after that, virtual appointments. And you can see this graph and how it relates to your industry in more detail if you download our pack. And we also have blogs upcoming on every single industry and how customers felt about these different products by age group and household income as well. We then wanted to understand from customers what they felt would be the impact of a retailer using one of these tools to manage their experience. So how would it affect them in whether they'd be more likely to return to the store or visit the retail again, etc. And we found that overall Most customers said that the system would have some kind of positive impact on them. 22% said they were more likely to return to the retailer and more likely to visit the retailer in the first place, and also to think better of the retailer. So it shows that these stores can really increase a retailer's ability to acquire customers, to keep loyalty, and also to improve brand perception. 20% said they would also tell their friends about the retailer because of their use of one of these systems, so increasing advocacy through managing customers in a more digital way, as well as 19% said they would be more likely to choose the retailer over their competitor, so retailers can use these tools to stand out from the competition. 25% said they would feel safer and happier, so actually just improving the customer's experience overall. But most importantly, I'm sure for everyone, is the fact that 17% of customers said they would be more driven to buy something in store, and 17% said they would also be more driven to buy something online because of a retailer's use of these tools. So it really shows there's a very strong business case for both immediate sales, but also long-term kind of omni-channel sales across your whole piece by implementing more digital ways of managing customers. You can also see this broken down by different type of solution in our deck, but you can see different products or the different retail choreography tools influencing customers in slightly different ways. So customers would be most likely to be influenced to buy something online if a retailer used a contactless click and collect service that enabled them to check in from outside of the store, and they were equally as likely to be driven something online by all the other tools. Also, customers would think better of the retailer, most likely to if they used a host to manage the waiting experience, and more likely to visit the retailer in the first place if they had a host to manage their waiting experience as well. And again, you can see this within our pack. And interestingly, we also think that COVID-19 could be a catalyst for retailers to implement these different types of tools. And that's based on the fact that younger generations are so much more likely to find these tools interesting and useful than baby boomer counterparts. So you can see here that the younger generations are 2 times more likely to be influenced to buy something in a store or online with a retailer because of their use of one of these tools. It shows that kind of using digital tools to manage customers is more important to the younger generations, and as these younger generations increase in spending power, that's going to become more and more important to retailers. And it's likely that customers have wanted these kind of tools all along, and that COVID will actually prove to be a catalyst for tools like this. We then wanted to ask customers why they found these solutions useful, and to also get some ideas that can help our clients to find the best practice when implementing these types of tools. So across virtual queuing on the left here and appointment scheduling, we found that customers said the biggest benefit of these tools would be that it would reduce their risk of contracting COVID-19, and that they could be more productive, or it's just generally more efficient. The idea of kind of staying updated and fair process was also very important to people as well. We then wanted to understand how long a wait needed to be before it was useful to add a customer to the queue by a host versus via their phone. Customers said that anywhere between 3 to 15 minutes was the useful time to use the service, whether it was by phone or by host. The threshold for joining by host was just very slightly lower than joining by phone, so the wait time, if the wait time was shorter, a host would be more useful just slightly earlier than by phone. We then wanted to understand how customers would be likely to join the virtual queue, and we found that SMS was the most popular method, followed by joining the queue by a host, followed then by using a self-service tablet kiosk, and then thereafter by QR code. But actually QR code, if you look at it just via the younger generations, it was equally interesting for them as other methods. It's just that baby boomers bring down their overall average because they're not that familiar with QR codes, and they're also not so used to kind of the idea of a self-service check-in tablet. They prefer to use SMS and host. 48% of customers said that they were willing to provide their phone number to join the virtual queue, purely to receive updates about their queue position while they're waiting. Almost 30% said that they were willing to opt into marketing messages when they join the virtual queue. We then asked customers how they would want to book appointments as well, and we found that 62% of customers said that they would want to book their appointment online, followed by using the retailer's app, followed by text message. So these are really must-have methods as online and in your app for enabling customers to book appointments. We found that QR codes was popular with the younger generations mostly, but overall 40% of people were willing to use QR code, whether that's in the store or via retailers' ads, outdoor ads or print ads. And we found, interestingly, that customers were much more likely to want to call the store to book an appointment than they were to want to call the contact center. And again, we found that half of customers were willing to provide their contact details to receive appointment reminders, and it was equally likely across email address and phone number, which was interesting because we actually thought phone number would be slightly less. We then asked customers about curbside contactless pickup services and how they would want to check in to let the retailer know they're there so they can find their order and bring it to the customer. And we found that SMS was the most popular method, followed by being able to check in from a link in their order confirmation email. After this was kind of self-service methods using a self-service tablet kiosk or scanning a QR code from their phone. And then we found that using a store host or a customer service desk were the least popular methods, possibly because it defeats the idea of a contactless click and collect service if you have to engage with a staff member. So it really shows that services like Qudini that lots of retailers are using to enable customers to check in by themselves from their phone are really valuable, rather than asking the customer to kind of knock on the window and ask a staff member to collect their order. So our conclusion from the whole survey is that even 6 months after the coronavirus outbreak first arrived, 64% of customers are still largely avoiding stores. And this is when coronavirus cases were at the end of the summer. They were starting to slowly increase, but they weren't significant at the time. And still you had many customers avoiding stores. But it does show that these different tools that we're seeing retailers implement do have a strong opportunity to help retailers to attract and retain customers in the immediate term during the pandemic, to improve their confidence in coming into store. Overall, we also found that the kind of increased interest from younger generations in all these digital ways to be managed, as well as the fact that they're more willing to pay for the privilege, really makes us believe that COVID could be a catalyst for retailers implementing these tools that will continue on into the future because of how well they can impact customer experience and resulting spend both online and in store across the whole omnichannel piece. So we're Qudini, and we help leading global brands with all of these tools that we've just surveyed customers on, which is why we were so interested to understand what consumers thought of them. Through our work with all of our clients, we've been able to help them acquire customers, increase sales, drive longer lasting loyalty and advocacy. We've also, through our data and the efficiencies of the tool, helped them to save resource costs and improve overall productivity, as well as improve their use of space because customers aren't standing around anymore. We've helped them to make smarter commercial decisions, whether it's on marketing, sales, resourcing. And we've also helped them to centralize use of many tools just into one simple platform, and overall to also enhance their competitive advantage by creating experiences that are second to none. So thank you so much for listening, and please, if I can provide any additional insight on these surveys, or if you're interested in seeing a demo of how we're helping retailers with all these tools that we've just surveyed customers on, I'd be happy to pick up a conversation. Please visit our website www.qudini.com or email us on info@qudini.com. Thank you so much for watching.